Hey, it's Rod Yates. Welcome to Mastering Events, an Audience Republic podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to some of the world's most accomplished event professionals to discover how they got where they are today, the lessons they've learned throughout that journey, and their insights around event marketing and maximizing ticket sales. My guest today is Jesse Lawrence, CEO and founder of marketing and content development platform FanIQ and secondary ticketing platform TicketIQ. The companies work in tandem in what Jesse calls the circle of life in the ticketing ecosystem, and we explore that concept in this interview. We also look in depth at the kinds of content Jesse and his team create to help sell tickets, the most effective social platforms on which to distribute that content, creative ways of marketing events via SMS, and the similarities and differences between marketing and selling tickets to sporting and music events. But we started with Jesse explaining in a little more detail the ideas behind FanIQ and TicketIQ.
So FanIQ and TicketIQ both sell tickets to start. FanIQ is a paid social platform for team venues and festivals. We help about 100 clients activate paid social. Snap, TikTok, Meta, Pinterest are the main channels. And we use a lot of original video content. So that's been a huge part of the FanIQ offering is we develop original content, we source content from influencers, we get content from partners to create this stream of original content that engages fans on those social platforms and ultimately sells tickets. TicketIQ is a little bit of a different piece of the equation. It's a secondary marketplace. So FanIQ, we're selling primary unsold tickets. TicketIQ, we're selling generally sold out tickets in a more traditional marketplace environment. So think StubHub, but no fees. The reason we have no fees is that TicketIQ really isn't a margin generator for us. It's a data generator. So if you're shopping on TicketIQ, we're tracking what you buy, we're tracking what you shop, and we're then putting ads in front of you for FanIQ partners. So we're sort of the circle of life in the ticketing ecosystem. We identify people that are shopping in the secondary market on TicketIQ. We also publish a lot of content you'll appreciate on the TicketIQ blog. What are the best ways to get tickets for the Taylor Swift concert, right? Our blog posts generally rank in the first page or two of Google, so we get a lot of organic traffic. It might not drive a lot of buyers, but it drives a lot of readers. We then use those audiences to build in-market individual profiles for FanIQ and then go serve ads to those people. So if you're shopping for Coachella tickets, we might target you with an ad for one of our California festival partners, like say Boots in the Park. And so they work well together in that sense. And we love TicketIQ because it gives consumers this really sort of no frills, no fees secondary experience. FanIQ is really helping sell out as much as possible for, mostly festivals and teams. We do a little bit on the music side for venues, but I'd say half of our clients are festivals and half of our clients are professional or minor league teams.
Right. So you have to tell me, what were the best ways to get Taylor Swift tickets?
Spend a lot of money.
Right.
Spend a lot of money. No, there was one for US buyers. Actually, one of the things that we promoted in one of our blog articles was get on a plane, go international. You'll actually save money compared to trying to buy tickets at one of the US dates. So it was international. Every city is a little different, but some of the international dates were about half the price of the US dates. So in some cases, that would have actually been a cheaper way to see her, amazingly.
So both FanIQ and TicketIQ, they're obviously across the music space, but also the sports space as well. And I'm sure comedy and theater and all across the spectrum. But in terms of just music and sports, are there any parallels between those two sectors that you're seeing in terms of ticket buying behavior and current challenges in that regard?
Well, music, we think about music a little bit more from a festival perspective. We don't do a lot in the arena touring world, largely because Live Nation and AEG are big promoters and they manage a lot of the paid social stuff that we do. So for festivals and sports, I think one of the biggest differences is how they use the secondary market. I think the sports world has really embraced open distribution. So the idea that a secondary marketplace isn't a four-letter word. It might actually be just a distribution channel. And so there's companies like Eventelect and Logitech who their entirety of their business is helping teams basically pipe supply into secondary exchanges, price that supply based on demand. So up if demand is high, down if demand is low, so that, when you're shopping on, say, Ticketmaster, you see some red dots, you see some blue dot, you see some, red and blue dots, meaning secondary, primary. Today, I'd say 90% of that is all team owned. 5 years ago, it might have been, the secondary was truly secondary, meaning like individual brokers were selling that. Today, it's really kind of mostly managed by the teams themselves. They're just kind of distinguishing primary the secondary in a way to give themselves more flexibility on things like pricing, and creating a little bit more of a sense of scarcity around what's available on the primary market, quote unquote. I think the sports world's really embraced that. The festival world really is not. I think the biggest festivals do this. The Coachellas, some of those do have secondary strategies, but by and large, I think festivals still think about the secondary market as a world they don't want to play in. And I think it's a missed opportunity in the sense that it's just where some people shop. So someone's going to buy tickets on StubHub for whatever event they're buying. If the festival isn't supplying that inventory, someone else is going to. And what generally happens is the market gets spec'd, or there's a spec sale, which means a broker knows that the festival promoter is not listing tickets, knows that they can go buy a ticket from primary for, let's say, $100, list it for 125. The StubHub buyer doesn't really know what the market is, because that's the only place they buy. They buy it through StubHub. The consumer pays 25% markup. So there's inefficiency that's created, I think, when festivals don't embrace the secondary market. We're starting to see some of those conversations shift, but I think by and large, that's a big distinction. I think the other thing that festivals and sports do differently, I think, and music, this is maybe a broader music statement, I think music does a better job of gauging interest and demand ahead of events. So tools like Verified Fan with Ticketmaster and other sort of wait list registration tools are really kind of de facto now in the music space for almost every tour. The sports world hasn't really figured out their version of that. So I think, in some ways it's less relevant because a team's playing 40 games regardless. A festival, if it has a ton of demand, may increase the number of events they have in a market. But I think, still there's a lot of value in understanding demand and demand for even certain price tiers that, music world is embracing much more so than the sports world, I would say, at this point.
So in terms of the advantages that you could see for the festivals embracing the secondary market, what are the major roadblocks for them? What do you think is preventing them from doing so? What are they seeing as the negative part of that market?
I think it's largely a perception of what the secondary market was more than what it is today, which is, it's a world where brokers are, scalping tickets, and it's really just not that as much as it is a distribution channel for sellers to list inventory, right? And if, as I said, if you're not, someone else is, so someone's sort of, making margin on top of your marketplace. So I think the roadblocks are really the historical perceptions of what the secondary market, has been, more so than what it is today, which, I think for some festivals and others, it's, that's to their detriment.
Yeah. You mentioned that some people only shop on the secondary market. Do you have an idea, even a ballpark idea, of what percentage of ticket buyers really just go onto the secondary market?
I don't know. I think it's really more of a brand affinity. So there's two paths. One is like there's people who just use StubHub. That's all they do, right? That's all they know. For as far as they're concerned, the ticket market is StubHub. Those users tend to be older. I think the other factor is that in Google search, people who are using Google to buy tickets, often the secondary providers are taking the first position in paid. So someone may just click on an ad. They have no idea, who it is, primary, secondary, but that's the first listing in Google. That's where they buy. So, Google is a major driver of traffic and sales. If you look at the paid ecosystem, I think it's now a much smaller percentage than it was at one point, because you've got Meta, you've got TikTok, you've got Snapchat, which I want to talk about is a very powerful platform. Pinterest, which we spoke about last time. So there's a lot of platforms now that can help with delivering the content to fans. So I think those are the two reasons that people buy in the secondary market without really thinking about the broad landscape and deciding, what the best place is. They just buy where they either are used to buying or the first place that they come to in a Google search.
Sure. I think on LinkedIn a while back, you posted a question basically reflecting on the slower ticket sales for Coachella, and asking whether that was indicative of the lineup or indicative of the festival market overall at the moment. And looking at some of the responses you got, they tended to suggest that this is indicative of the market at the moment. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that?
I think that's right. I think this is the third, depending on the festival, the second or third summer post-COVID. Most of the big acts have toured or been in events. So I think that initial wave of post-COVID jubilation of, oh my gosh, I haven't seen my favorite band in 2 years, or in some cases longer. I'm going to do whatever I can do to get to see that band. That's kind of gone at this point. And even festivals, people who hadn't been to that festival in a couple of years or several years have now probably been back to that festival post-COVID. So you're in an environment where, a lot of that scarcity, pent-up demand is gone. You're in an environment where money's tight, the consumer's stretched thin, prices for everything else are high. And so that discretionary festival event becomes harder to justify, I think, in this environment. And we're certainly seeing more headwinds this year than we have in the past couple of years, where it's been all tailwinds. We work with about 30 festivals. We're seeing festivals have to work a lot harder this year to get to the same place they did last year. Now, the good news for festivals that work with us is we're really good at identifying fans. Two things: helping storytell around past fans that have already come and trying to kind of get them back using high engagement, organic feeling video. So one of the things that we really focus on at FanIQ is creating content that is an ad, but feels very much like it is not an ad. So it's a post from an individual that's an influencer. It's a sort of day in the life experience at a festival. It's a walkthrough of the premium space. So we've created a content subscription for our partners, whereby we're delivering them 8 to 10 pieces of content a month that we use in paid social. They can use in their own paid social efforts if we're not doing all of it. They can use in their organic efforts. They can put in their emails. And what we've seen that do is, drive a lot of engagement to fans who, might otherwise tune out a message of, hey, here's your lineup. It's a static image. That's not enough to get people to lean in and pay attention and see who's actually playing. This custom content that feels organic and feels like it's, we try to convey as much FOMO as we can, has been a big differentiator in driving sales for partners. So I think if they're using us or they're doing it themselves, I think really making sure that as partners are out executing in paid social and other channels, they're not just posting a static image and expecting that fans are going to see that and click and buy. They've really got to work harder to convince the fan and educate the fan about, even if they've been in the past, why do you need to come back? What this year is interesting or different, or what from last year was so much fun that we want to show it to you again, and you won't be able to say no. So I think it's just required more effort, being smarter about when you're spending dollars. So one of the things we focus on with partners is really leaning into the price increase windows. So if we've got a $50,000 budget, we're spending probably 60% of that, or 70% in some cases, in these high demand windows. So at the on sale, lineup announcements, price increase tiers, and then creating content for each of those windows that isn't just a static image that says prices are going up in 24 hours by now, but again, reinforcing the experience, making sure the consumer knows that, hey, this great experience, if you want to get it at this price, you've got to do it in the next 24 hours or whatever the case is. So I think there's just a lot more effort required and needed to get to the same place. And I think festivals that don't recognize that are going to find themselves behind the eight ball with a month to go, because they were sort of expecting the things that worked the last couple of years to work, and we're seeing that you can't do it the same way as you've done in a high demand event year. You have to kind of treat it like even the biggest events like Coachella. This is a year where you've got to really convince the user to get up off their couch or get out of their house, or go to the festival for the third time in the last however many years.
That idea of custom content, you cited a couple of executions there, whether they're sort of walking through the premium area or a day in the life. Any other kinds of custom content that you've seen be really powerful in terms of moving the needle on those sales?
Yeah, we have this SMS video that we do. It's a lineup announcement, and we do it through SMS. So it looks like a text chain, and it's a conversation, and that conversation reveals who's in the lineup, right? So that's been a really successful piece of or template.
When you say text chain, do you mean it's an imaginary conversation, or?
Correct. Yeah, it's a video that looks like two people are texting about the event, and in the course of that text, the lineup's revealed. And so little sort of templates like that have been really successful. We see matching the content to the platform is really critical. So fashion content, what outfit am I wearing to Festival X this year, does really well, targeted to specific audiences. So female audiences really like and watch videos of other women looking at, or talking about what outfits they might wear, or, here are 3 outfits, which one do you think I should wear? So we've got a stable of influencers that we work with that create this content, and sometimes partners have their own influencers as well, but we try to have an influencer that represents each sort of persona that we think could go to the event doing that kind of thing. So we have a guy, if it's a country music festival, we have a lot of country music festivals with big Hispanic demos. So we'll have a guy and a Hispanic individual create content that we target to people we think are Hispanic or speak Spanish. So you want to sort of show people themselves in the screen and say, hey, I'm a lot like you, and here's what I'm thinking about wearing. So fashion content is really done well. Those little sort of trends are big. So following the trends on TikTok and Snapchat is critically important. We've got a team of 4 or 5 folks that do nothing but track trends and create content, and so we're always helping partners make sure they're following the latest trend or playing into the latest trend. So, but we've got about 15 templates overall that we use in any given market for any given partner. Only a third of those may perform, and one of the things that we're finding is that it's really important to recognize when content is not performing, pull it down. So we have this sort of bracket approach for our content. We'll post 5 or 6 pieces. We'll run ads against them. The one that does best we spend up against. The one that does second best we spend up a little less. The other 3 we kill entirely. We bring in another set of 3 to replace them. So we're always running 5 unique pieces, but we're swapping out the best performing and the worst performing in a really dynamic way. So I think one of the things that we see partners struggle with on their own is, how do you create enough content to do that? And that's a challenge. And for a given partner over the course of a 6-month campaign, we may run 50 pieces of unique video content that we're testing and optimizing, and we'll do A/B versions of that for our MLS clients. Our top performing format is a British voiceover. So it's someone talking about the game, and it's this very dignified British voiceover. That does really well. Makes sense. I understand why. So little things, like it's not just what's in the video, but the audio piece is really important from an A/B testing perspective. And so we've got this big data set now of best practices that we've developed across 30 clients this year, 60 over the last 3 or 4 years, to understand, what are the things that we think are going to shortcut to optimize spend and top performance. And so we're able to help partners kind of get there quicker and create content at the scale that is required to keep things fresh. An impression and a half, meaning if you show someone the same impression twice, engagement drops off the table. So it's really incumbent on partners to identify who's interested, who's engaged. As soon as you identify that, and we've got a bunch of metrics that we use to identify that, serve them a new piece of content, right? Don't serve them the same piece over and over again. If they engage with that piece of content, serve them a new piece of content, right? And keep doing that until they ultimately purchase. And then also doing that for very specific audiences. So if you're going after a family audience, that content sequence looks a lot different than if you're going after a raver. So you've got to know, who your audience is and create content that really speaks to them, as opposed to, saying, hey, we've got a sizzle reel, we're just going to run that for everybody, because that just does not work anymore.
Sure. Yeah. You mentioned MLS, which I think is Major League Soccer.
Correct.
Yes. Which I do want to talk to you about shortly, but just quickly back on that idea of matching the content to the platform. Snapchat is a platform that I believe you are very bullish about in terms of its effectiveness in event marketing. What makes it such a good platform?
It's a good question. I think if you believe Snapchat, which I do, because the numbers bear it out, it's really the only true social network left. Meaning every other platform it's really become a new version of broadcast. So you're consuming content. I mean, I have a hard time finding my friends in Instagram. If I'm scrolling through, maybe 1 out of every 10 things I see is actually posted by a friend of mine. It's all stuff that the algorithm is feeding into. So I think Snapchat I don't use it, but I've got teenage kids that do. It's a social utility. It's a messaging app. There's this Snap Map, so you can see where all your friends are. So I think in a way, it's kind of like the only social media company that's really social first. That's the only real explanation I've got as to why. But it performs phenomenally well. It's our top performing platform on not every campaign, but I'd say 2/3 of our campaigns. And it's a little bit of like the dark horse. Not everyone thinks about Snapchat. They think about Meta because it's been there. They think about TikTok because TikTok's in the headlines every day. Snapchat's a little bit of not the up and comer, but it's the dark horse, but it really performs well. And we recommend to all our partners that they're on it, and we've seen a lot of success, and we'll continue to invest heavily in it.
I think that idea of fashion was quite big on Pinterest, for example.
Yeah.
On Snapchat, can you give me an example of an activation that's worked really well for you?
It really varies depending on the audience we're trying to go after and the event that we're focused on. But just as an example, it's a social, as I said, getting back to the sort of the true social platform, we have a whole category of partiers that we target broadly. And it's people who we've seen show an interest in going to live events. You can target segments in Snapchat like people who like to drink beer, people who drink whiskey. So we overlay those on our segments, and we create content then that shows people drinking beer at festivals, right? So partiers, I think, is a really sort of easy to understand and obvious one that we see a lot of success with. Another one that we see a lot of success with, this is less relevant for festivals, is animal lovers. So we've identified a whole cohort of people on Snapchat that love animals, and we have, for a handful of our college football clients, they actually have real animal mascots. And so we have ads that are entirely the Dubs the Husky for University of Washington, which was in the national championship last year. Just videos of him walking around the field, and it's like amazing from it doesn't convert, but it engages. So it gets people into the funnel, and you say, okay, wow, you're interested in Dubs the Husky. We know you're in this area. Now we're going to start hitting you with ads that say, there's a game next week. You should buy tickets. Those are two good ones. I mean, we have 15 different audience segments that we use about 80% for 80% of our partners. It's, team fans, it's genre fans, it's partiers, it's animal lovers. And so I think another one that does well is like outdoor enthusiasts. So for a lot of our festivals, they're in these beautiful outdoor settings, and there's hiking and there's other things you can do. So we've actually really started building that content into our campaigns. We don't even, we'll show a little bit about the festival, but an entire video might be like, here's a great hike I took at Northlands Festival in New Hampshire, right? And it's a 30-second video about this hike, and it says, oh, by the way, swipe up to get tickets to Northlands on, June 6th. So I could go on and on about the different, but there's an endless number of those. And that's why I think creation of that content that really speaks to the audiences is critical. And what we see a lot of partners do is they just say, hey, I've got a video, I'm just going to run it everywhere. And that just doesn't work. You're just leaving money on the table if that's the approach you take.
Yeah, Dubs the Husky, I think, is fascinating. And I think I've seen you talk about posts that are actually posted from mascot accounts. So perhaps the mascot has its own Instagram account. They have a 60% RO. What is that statistic?
It's as much as 60%. We've seen a couple. So we have, for one of our NFL clients, the Houston Texans, their mascot is Toro, the bull. He's got his own account, and we run ads from Toro's account, and not every ad in every game, but for certain games, we saw a 60% lift in certain segments relative to the rest of the campaign. I think there's an authenticity piece there. It doesn't feel like it's an ad as much. A lot of what we're trying to do across the board is create a sense of authenticity in the paid social world. People do not want to feel like they're being sold to. So whether you're serving ads directly from your account or from your mascot's account, it's got to feel consistent, relevant, authentic. One of the things that I think for festivals is an interesting opportunity to think about is engaging their influencers to serve ads. And so we actually can track sales through those influencer accounts. We basically connect with them on the back end. We serve ads on behalf of the festival through those influencer accounts, but you can track sales and attribution just like it was through your own account. So I think for festivals, that's probably, most festivals don't have a mascot, although that might be a decent idea. And, things start to get really challenging. Just, hire a pack of llamas or, a couple giraffes if you really want to shoot the moon. But I think, there's opportunities to lean into all those verticals. And I think the key is trying to figure out what are the verticals and messages that really resonate with your audiences and the audiences you want to bring into your event.
Sure. One statistic I saw, I think it may have been on LinkedIn, but you were basically talking about the recent Super Bowl, and you were saying that the average price on the secondary market 2 weeks prior to kickoff was $11,028. My first thought was, are there people who will actually pay that? Is that the case? Is that reflective of the market?
It was a really unusually expensive Super Bowl for one reason, and that was location. It was in Las Vegas. It actually, from a sales standpoint, it was probably TicketIQ's worst Super Bowl in 5 years. I think a lot of people just said, I'm not going. I'm just not going to pay those prices. But the NFL, it's a very kind of managed market, so it's not an organic market. The NFL, they have a company, they have a ownership stake in called On Location that manages pricing and distribution for Super Bowl tickets. So, they said, hey, this is not going to get any cheaper than $8,000. It's going to be, that's just is what it is, and that's the price they decided that they wanted to get. And apparently, people bought it because the game was sold out. Now, I think there's some of that they might have said, hey, it's worth it for us not to lower prices because we don't want to train the consumer to wait. And if we don't sell all the tickets, we'll just give them to sponsors. This year was an interesting one. I'm very interested to see what happens next year. It's in New Orleans. Super Bowl prices have been above $5,000 for the last really 5 to 7 years as the get-in price, the cheapest ticket available. This was a step up, so I'm curious to see if it sort of reverts back to what has been more of the norm, or if they try to maintain it at that level, even in a market that's sort of not as premium as Las Vegas is.
And I believe that NFL activities in Las Vegas are traditionally higher in terms of ticket price.
They are. So we track the Raiders versus the rest of the league. The Raiders, you got to make sure I'm getting my numbers right. I think it was 115% above the NFL average for their 2023 season. And that's just people saying, hey, I'm a Jets fan. Let's get on a plane and go see the Jets playing in Vegas. The Super Bowl ended up being about 70% higher than the average of the last 5 years. So it wasn't quite as high as the Raiders prices were from a percentage. I mean, it was a lot higher in terms of absolute dollars, but on a percentage basis, it was ended up being about 70% more expensive than the 5-year average for Super Bowl tickets.
Are there other geographical trends in the primary and secondary market, such as games are more expensive in Las Vegas?
Not really. I mean, I think every market is its own demand profile. I think scarcity is much more a driver of when's the last time this act toured, when's the last time this festival took place, when's the last time this team was in a championship. I will say, if the Lions had been in the championship, I don't know how closely you follow U.S. football, they have never been to the Super Bowl. They're one of the original NFL teams, huge following. They had this great year. They came very close to beating the 49ers to get there. If they had been Super Bowl prices would have been even higher. So I think location has, very frequently has location can drive prices down, I think, if it's not a great location, but I don't see location driving prices up as much as it might in some other cases. It's really Las Vegas. It's its own thing. It's just it's a totally unique situation. We see it for hockey. We see it for football when the A's move there. If they ever do, we'll see it for baseball. It's just the Vegas effect.
Yeah, that idea of scarcity, which you mentioned, and you touched on briefly, the idea of ticketing tiers and how you're a fan of I guess, if a ticketing tier is getting close to selling out, you really want to make a noise about the fact that it's almost gone. So buy now. Or how many, is there any data on the optimum number of ticketing tiers?
Yeah, I really don't have a good answer to that. I mean, I think this is very unscientific. I think there's definitely a point at which it's too much and it gets very confusing. So just from a pure user experience perspective, if you look at a typical front gate checkout, there's 4 or 5 options available. I think anything more than that for the consumer starts to feel a little bit overwhelming. At some point, choice becomes an impediment just because there's so much you don't know where to start. From a price tiering perspective, I think certainly as much premium as you can squeeze out of it. We're still seeing good demand for premium. I mean, that's holding up. That was a trend last time we spoke, and we're seeing premium still kind of lead the way, sell out quicker. Again, it's not where it was a couple of years ago because the event market still is softer overall, but premium is still, people are still interested in spending more to get a more unique experience. The one thing from the price perspective that I think you can never have enough of personally is price tiering as the event goes along. So, lots of different price categories and GA plus and GA plus plus plus, that can get confusing and overwhelming. But I think the idea of we're going to be very active in raising prices. If I was a festival, I would probably raise prices every month. I would just say, hey, listen, it's not the tier 1, tier 2. We're just every month prices go up. The best time to get them is, at the pre-sale. And as we get closer, they get more expensive. because it's sort of the opposite of the drip pricing concept, where when prices are not included in the upfront cost, people get committed to the purchase even when the fees come in at the end. So what's called drip pricing is just behavioral economically a proven conversion winner. If you were doing an A/B test, drip pricing is going to win every time. Now, it's a terrible consumer experience. There's a lot of backlash and even legislation. In New York State, it's illegal to do it, even though it's not enforced. The equivalent of that in the festival world is price tiering, which is totally ethical, in my opinion, and benefits consumers who buy early. It's just as powerful, though. 2 weeks before prices go up, depending on how often it happens, 2 weeks after prices go up, there's such an opportunity to sell and to create, the sense that you either miss the window or you don't want to miss the next one. The price increase can be nominal. We have a partner, Gov Ball, who just raised their tickets $9. It's a $300 ticket. They raised it $9. People don't even pay attention to, in many cases, what the increase was. It's just prices are going up, you should buy now. So if I was a festival, I would create as many price tiers based on time as possible. I would keep the number of options pretty simple. So GA, premium, maybe a couple others, but not get sort of too carried away there, and lean into all those windows to sort of artificially create a sense of demand and an urgency to buy. Because right now, if you don't do that, everyone waits till the last minute.
The idea of drip pricing and that idea of people going through the sales process and then having the extra fees added as they go along, it doesn't lead to cart abandonment, as you just mentioned, but cart abandonment still remains a big issue. And there are certain things that ticketing platforms and organizers can do to minimize that, such as just make it as quick as possible and remove distractions. Beyond those two clear things, are there any other ways that you've seen organizers or ticketing providers really reduce that cart abandonment rate?
I think the best, most effective is the simplest, is just making sure, and almost every primary platform has this, is that you have a email trigger that goes out if people abandon. Hopefully you've gotten their information from a registration standpoint. If someone's hasn't made it all the way through, you send them an email. Maybe you give them some incentive to purchase. From a paid ad perspective, we also can target people that are cart abandoners. So that's one of the things we do for partners is, if they don't complete the purchase, you just make sure they see an ad. So you want to make sure they either see an ad or get an email or even an SMS, if they have SMS built into that checkout flow that says, hey, we saw that you didn't finish your purchase. Maybe that's a place where you say, prices are going up in 2 weeks, now's the time to buy. Or just sometimes the nudge of, hey, tickets are still available, but they're going quick, you should get them now, can be enough to get people over the line.
Right. The SMS has come up a couple of times in our conversation. Are you still seeing that as an effective medium?
It's very effective on two measures. One, it's very cheap. People engage with it. To me, it's the new email. I mean, email, I have a whole group of employees and kids that don't use email. I mean, they do because all the older folks in their world, force them to. But if it was up to them, they wouldn't use email. So I think, especially for that younger audience, SMS is the new email. I don't think it's optional. I think you have to have an SMS strategy. You have to have an SMS partner and manage your CRM retention strategy with a combination of email and SMS. So yeah, I think it's critical. I don't think it's not an option at this point.
Jesse, last couple of things. I just wanted to quickly go back to the Major League Soccer, which you touched on briefly. And that's a growing sector, as is all of women's sports, but it's a sector that still fights for column inches in some regards and still fights for fan attention. Using Major League Soccer as an example, what have you found to be some really effective ways to drive lead generation for ticket sales?
What we're trying to do with a lot of our sports teams is make the inside sales effort more efficient. So 5 years ago, there might have been, for a typical MLS team, 20 inside sales reps who were picking up the phone, hey, this is John over at MLS team, would love to talk to you about season tickets. That just doesn't, people, first of all, don't want to get called. SMS is a great way to message that if it's already someone but our lead gen product collects a lead. We say, hey, here's information about this team and why we think it's interesting. And if you'd like more information, give us your phone number, give us your email. The first follow-up is actually an SMS. And it says, hey, thanks for your interest. Here are 3 products that we offer. Text 1 to get more information on the first product. Text 2 to get more information on the second. And that then gives them more detailed information where they can click to buy. If at the end of that flow, they don't respond, they don't follow up, you can say, hey, sorry, we haven't heard from you in a while. Would you like to schedule some time to talk to a rep? They click on a calendar invite, they set it up. So I think being smart about how you're using the lead flow, not just dropping phone numbers and emails into a CRM and picking up the phone, but qualifying, either get them in or get them out, so that when someone does pick up the phone, they've got either someone who's really ready to buy, they just need someone to walk them through something, or you've gotten a better sense of what they're actually interested in, right? They've said, hey, I'm interested in product 1, so that when someone picks up the phone, say, hey, I'd love to tell you about more about product 1. Here are all the benefits. Here's why we think it'd be a great fit for you. Using SMS as part of the lead flow is really compelling, and we've seen a lot of success with it. I think the other thing is just, back to the content side, merchandising the stuff that you're trying, especially for high-end premium spaces, luxury, courtside, pitch side stuff. You've got to show them not just what the experience is like watching the game from those places, but what are all the things they get: parking, concessions, free food, free booze, right? Like, not just listing it out, but that's where like day in the life stuff does really well, where you have someone kind of walk through their premium experience at an Atlanta United game, and someone sees that, it's a much deeper connection and a much more compelling hook than an ad that says, are you interested in premium tickets this year for a team? So I think a lot of the things that work for single game sales work for premium and lead gen as well. And I think teams are having to figure out how to be more efficient with less resources, because those inside sales teams are just getting smaller and smaller for teams.
Looking forward to 2024 and beyond, what do you think are going to be some of the trends we're going to see in ticket sales across festivals, but across sports as well, if there's any that we haven't kind of covered yet?
I think pricing, I think is a big. I don't know that it's a trend, but I think it's something that people really need to be sensitive to. We have clients where there's a price, and then they sort of lower prices even marginally, and it really moves the needle. So I think testing a lot of different price points, and making sure that you're not sort of assuming that one price is the final price, but effectively testing kind of the different dynamic pricing capabilities that exist in most platforms, I think is something that teams and festivals will continue to do. So I don't think there's anything that's like sort of new that hasn't been uncovered or groundbreaking. I mean, I'm sure there's something in the AI world that I'm forgetting or not privy to, but I think it's just more of the evolution toward really having to kind of sell consumers on why your event. I think this assumption, I think it just continues to get more competitive within the event space, but also outside of the event space. There's just more things demanding attention. And I think in order to continue to have the event space stay healthy and robust, teams, venues, and festivals have to really present and convince consumers about why they should spend their time and money with that partner in that particular venue. And I think that's just becoming more and more of a challenge. So I think that will continue to be an area that teams and other ticket sellers need to focus on.
Yeah, of course. Jesse, that's it. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, Rod, thank you. Always enjoy the conversation. Thanks for the time.